Welcome. Welcome to those who are here live. I really feel your support, our connection, and who the third person is that joined us, as well as those who join us later in a recording, because I believe that there is no time that I've been told in a quantum world. Time is all at once, and there are parallel universes because we are so multidimensional. So there is no time. So all who join me in listening to a recording several days from now, a month from now, we're all together right now, joined for this purpose of seeing what spirit, what intuition will have me say. Fortunately, I have some structure in that I have a series of slides and I also have my script, but I tend to be more and more an off script person. And that's because I have moved to greater trust in myself and that I am supported and by love, by spirit, and all will be perfect. Not perhaps in my human lens of perfectness. Yesterday, I ran into made so many mistakes in getting the recording on YouTube, etc. So I invite mistakes. I invite I don't knows. I invite letting go of structure. I let go of perfectionism a long time ago. It's so freeing. And that's one of the things that is an issue in the inner child. Welcome, who joined us. In the inner child work, many inner children have a obvious, not so obvious need to not make mistakes because they have to be perfect. And fortunately, I have healed myself enough, so I have let go of that script. And I have let go enough about trust, so I can feel trusting right now that I will say exactly what I need to say in the next few minutes. This is all a journey to self-love. Today and the whole series and all my work is about self-love. So I found this lovely image to show that. There's a book that I read many years ago, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. And in the end, she holds herself in expression of self-love. And that's the theme today about emotional. The emotional reset is about connecting through emotions with yourself. So let's see what's next. Today is the third day, hump day. I feel so excited and full of spirit to do this day, and I hope that you can connect with that as well. Now, I presented my ACE system. I'm still following the script of who helped me put this program together, and this is the remaining parts of it. Yesterday, I spoke about awareness a lot, and an acceptance, and about awakening, bringing to mind the quotation of Carl Jung, the person looking on the outside dreams. When they look inside, they awaken. And the homework assignments in your workbook we're all about becoming aware of your current challenges and pain. For some of you, you already know what they are, but it covers at least 6 to 8 areas of your life to see where you're sitting with yourself in self-reflection, bringing awareness in to see, oh, I have been denying what's going on in this aspect of my life. And it gives you an opportunity to be with yourself, to see what is there for you. Accepting this is kind of like surrender. You don't struggle with what is in front of you, in you or in the external world. You accept it. When you step back, you realize when you don't accept, you struggle. Struggling is painful. And struggling is not being open to joy, to enjoying what is. And then this process will get you to a place of awakening to your possibilities. See is what we're going to do today, especially choosing to change and connect with your emotions, because I'm going to speak about my experiences, and those are my clients that may remind you or connect with how you deal with your emotions and why you do. Because when you connect with your emotions, you can choose to receive the messages they have, returning you to your heart and the guidance it can provide, and how it can connect you with your inner child, because your negative emotions are usually signals from your hurting inner child that she is still there and needs, or he is still there and needs to be connected with you. So I'll be elaborating on all of this in the next few minutes. Tomorrow, I will move to empower, evolve, and expand. Moving beyond your former limits, finding the sources of power so that you can evolve to live in your truth and life purpose. And in that process, feel your connection with a greater power. This is a reminder for me to thank you. Thank you who are showed up to be with me live. And as I said before, who are joining to listen to me through a recording. I also thank all the beings on my path who, one way or another, supported me, gave me what they needed to give me at that time. Why I hesitated just a second ago was because I remember a chemistry teacher of mine in college. I was put in an honors chemistry class because I was going to focus on kind of a pre-med program or something like that. Oh, incidentally, my high school teacher told me, forget about medical school and being a doctor because your parents can't afford to send you there. I paid attention. So when I went to college, that was not my aim to become a doctor. And as it turned out, it would not have been the right path for me. And she was wrong. By the time I was ready to go on to graduate school, my parents had plenty of money to support me in medical school. So be careful about beings out there that act like they know what's best for you. That's another theme I want to encourage. The whole idea of ultimately you need to clear enough so you can hear the inner voice of wisdom inside, hear your healed heart, because we're working at the wall around your heart that were created by early wounds so that you can hear clearly the messages. And we'll talk about this process a bit more. So thank you. Thank you. All right. I was trying to guess what these images are about. The first one to me is clearly anger. The second one seems like sadness or grief. And the third one seems like kind of stress and confusion. And the fourth is maybe worrying about how you look. And the fourth one about how you're upset in your stomach, how you're nervous. So this is a launching point to introduce you to my emotional system, because we're going to make this simple. I found this beautiful image, which lists what they believe are the negative emotions that need to be dealt with: sadness, frustration, jealous, doubt, envy, despair, depression, guilt, grief, fear, and shame. Now, my way of looking at it is to just look at three: anger, and I spend a lot of time on anger; fear, and I've worked a lot with inner children who fear. I know fear. And the third is about grief or sadness. I won't spend equal time with these three throughout today. At least that's my intention. But let's look at sadness. Okay, that's grief. Can put that in that category. I can accept that. Frustration to me is a subtle expression of anger. Jealousy is the same thing. Jealousy is being angry that you don't have. Doubt is an expression of fear. You doubt, you fear you don't have what it takes. You fear you're going to make a mistake. Envy, I put in the category of anger too. Envy, comparing, feeling, I'm angry that I don't have what they have. Despair, where I put that, I guess it would be extreme fear. Not knowing where to turn to, fearing that the inner child is so alone, desperate. Depression. To me, depression is not a feeling. Depression is so commonly used. I always have to ask, what are you feeling? And my view of depression, to entertain, accept, or reject, is that you have dampened your emotional system because of the way you have experienced emotions and pain early in childhood, and because of how your culture is and how your parents were. You learn to push feelings down. All feelings, not only difficult feelings, but joy also. So I see depression as doing that. And when you can't feel that, you don't have much motivation, because in some very basic way, your heart motivates you to act, to do, or not. So depression is feelings out of reach. And yes, so lack of motivation, not in touch with your feeling. Guilt doesn't clearly fall into my basic three. But I see guilt as connected to reacting to not doing what you believe you should be doing. You know, the consciousness that makes you feel guilty, the conscience that was created by your growing up, by the church, by the schools. Guilt keeps you in place. So guilt is not a feeling, but a mixture of feeling. Fearing that you can't be free because you need that conscience and rules to keep you in line. Guilt may also hide anger for being in this situation and angry that you've been left and angry about the rules. I don't know. But guilt doesn't feel like a pure feeling. Grief is. It's sadness. It's about loss. And we'll elaborate on what you could have lost that you don't even recognize. Fear? Okay, that's straight. I accept that. Shame is in the same category for me as guilt. It's a mixture of feeling. It brings in how you are seen somewhat, or you're made to make others the impression, the approval of others so much that when you don't do what is expected or right, what the rules tell you of society, your family, and so forth, you are afraid of the mistake you made, but more you feel that others are looking at you. So that's my first introduction to Anne's way of looking at emotions. Now, this comes from an institute about studying English, and they gathered all these negative connected feeling words. I just wanted to point out how the human mind can create so much that may or may not be helpful. And if it's helpful looking at this list to say, oh, it's either a feeling or it points to a feeling, well and good. But I like my system of having 3 to make the process of working with emotions a lot easier. What else? Oh yeah, I wanted to also say, you know, how do we learn what anger is? What shame is, what guilt is, what fear is, and so forth. Nobody's there telling you, okay, this experience you're having right there, that's being angry. Or what you're feeling now is very fearful. Or what you're experiencing now is sadness or grief. The last one is easiest because often tears can indicate reaction to loss, like you crying at someone's funeral, or about some best friend moving away, or you didn't get that promotion or that job, that opportunity, and you burst into tears and you don't know why. I burst into tears very early on when I was 21 or 22. My parents were with me in California, where I was traveling with my new husband to Indiana for graduate school. And when I was, I can still feel it. When I was saying goodbye to them, I cried. And I was so confused because the adult me thought, hey, this is not goodbye forever. I'm going to see them again anyway. And now, as I'm saying it now, I realized it touches a very, very deep sense of loss. To put it simply, when I came into human life and lost my being with love, Anyway, that's a bit amusing about tears. Okay, so many of us may not have been taught to not cry because mostly I talk to women, but men get, the reprimand. Don't be a sissy. Boys don't cry. Men don't cry. So men learn to be very unemotional and not expressive of tears. And yet sometimes involuntarily, when they're watching a movie or reading a book, tears arise, which of course they try to hide or push back. So back to the idea, no one's there with you with your feelings. Number one, that's such an injury because you have not been present with a caring adult. So how do you label anger? How do you know the variations of anger and know that's what it's about? Or fear. Well, fear is a little easier. Fear is easier because it can be physiological, and we're going to get into that. So enough of my musings about that. Now, this is me when I was growing up, maybe 2 or 3. And I want to tell you the story because it showed me how I learned about anger. My grandmother, who was living with us, because we're a Japanese household, my father, the oldest brother, was taking care of his mother. And I overheard her say to my mother, she is a habutembo, which meant that I was a pouter. And the way it was described, it didn't sound like a compliment, at least not to me. And I got it. That is not what you want to show. You don't show your anger in that way if you can control yourself. Anger is not a good thing. And so I learned to repress and suppress my anger. Consequently, I grew up not being in touch with my anger. I didn't know it. In fact, when I got married to a man who turned out to be very angry, I would see him just blowing off being really angry, about what he encountered that day or whatever. And I would be amazed. I would think, wow, how can you be so angry? What is this all about? I was totally out of touch with my own anger. Okay, so what do I want to say? Okay, now the questions I gave you prompted you to explore your experiences, especially early on. And so I'm going to tell you a bit of my history, hopefully quickly, because we need to move on. And that is, my parents were introverted for various reasons, which I may have talked about earlier. And I never saw anyone angry except my twin sisters, but the adults were never angry, never a raised voice, except I remember 3 times that I was privileged to witness my father's anger. I don't think anyone else was around. One was we were in a very primitive kitchen where our Melmac coffee cups with a very thick handle, he was trying to put up on a hook that barely captured it. So he put it up there, it fell down. He picked it up, put it up again, fell down. I don't know how many times he did that. Then he grabbed the cup, opened the kitchen door, and just slammed it into the porch floor. Of course, it didn't break. It was Melmac, unbreakable. That was one incident. Another incident was when my twin sisters were squabbling about making something in a mixer. He grabbed the mixer, walked to the front door, and threw it out. The third time, was when I was doing a project on the living room table on a wool rug, probably expensive and recently bought. He said to me, "Watch that India ink." And somehow I didn't watch it carefully enough, and it spilled out to the floor. He picked up that India ink and threw it across the room to hit the wall and fall over onto the doily on the TV. Now I thought, okay, these were strange examples of my father's explosive anger, but it was never personal, so I didn't think it mattered. But in looking back, I realized that I had suppressed how the anger energy got into me, and somehow the young child decided, I am never going to experience the kind of explosive anger. With that kind of imperative and decision, it's been very, very hard to recover my anger. So do I leave? Oh, so the assignments is to encourage you to look at how you've experienced anger in your family. What do you think what your inner child was informed by? Have you ever been really angry, etc., etc.? Spend time with yourself to explore this particular topic. I want to suggest that although I speak of anger in a pure way, there might be all these other things as well that are the sources of anger: pain, hopelessness, confusion, loneliness, stress, shame, fear, all of these things. So although I speak of it as if it's something pure, it's much more complex about that. So keep that caveat in mind. So what is anger? In my system of emotions, anger is a no from the heart. Anger is saying, no, I don't like this person, makes me really uncomfortable, says things, acts in a way, no, I don't want to be here. It's no, this situation with the banks, with the telephone, with the internet, everything, my heart is saying, no, I don't like this, because a need wasn't seen or met. I need things to flow, and I had so many things not flow. And if I paid attention, if I were angry or frustrated or disappointment, I would hear my heart is saying, no, I don't like this. And anger is here for you to hear and know and receive. No, K-N-O-E, know the no from the heart, because it puts you in touch with a need that wasn't seen or met. This is a basic wound. When you were very young, your mother wasn't there often enough or at all, because she didn't see what you needed and didn't care to meet that need. And that is a huge wound that we all need. Is that it on anger? Oh, I go on. So to help you ferret out anger when you have doing repression and suppression, I have put up a simple way of addressing how you might feel anger: annoyed, upset, frustrated. Okay, anger, it's there. Now I want to add to the list. So on the right-hand side, I say annoyed, irritated, disappointed, frustrated, envious, jealous, and maybe you will recognize that you blame, you complain, or you judge. These are all expressions to me of your anger that's so subtle you think you're not angry. And if you're out of touch with your anger, it's good to observe and notice whether you're blaming, complaining, or judging. Who goes on the highway and not want to blame or complain about other drivers or the conditions of the road? Or if you're late, what made you late? Blame or complain about this person that never is ready to go, or making judgments. Judgment is how we see the world, good or bad, safe or unsafe, right or wrong. This is our response out of anger to walk away in some ways by judging. And once you judge, you say, okay, I've taken care of it. I'm right and they're wrong, or whatever it is that we do. So this list is very important for me in working with clients to begin to see all expressions of anger. This is my picture of fear. As I indicated, I think fear is not as complex and as subtle as fear, possibly because it's so physiological sometimes. Here are all the words connected with fear. When fear of people is high enough, you're called a paranoid. Vertigo, fear of heights, that is on a physiological level. You can't go there. Upset could be fear. Horror is an expression of fear. And anxiety. Now, I have my own version of anxiety, which I will talk about soon. So this is how this person decided to put the situations that are about fear. I just see stress and neurosis, which is very interesting. Neurosis is a category label that I remember putting a lot of adults into. They're neurotic. And I think what the bottom line is, they're just so full of anxiety and fear. And that is governing how they live. Or the stress that people build up in the course of a day, weeks, and months is because of feeling afraid of not walking the straight line that you learn. And it keeps you there, and you've got to keep going, so the stress builds up. It's also keeping in line with the patterns that the inner child created. For example, I was texting with my daughter who was in a dilemma. She didn't know what to do. And what it came down to was her pattern of overdoing, showing up for people. And because she's done this, she's had adrenal failure. She's exhausted a lot of times. And because this pattern has run her so much, what was I? She even is experiencing stress and anxiety. And we concluded our texting with, if you can let go of having to show up for everybody else and putting your needs last, if you can let that go, It's a turning point because you're beginning to see that you are important. Something you didn't experience when you're really young, but you, the adult, can make you important and your needs important. Happily, she isn't going. Now, here are the sort of subtle forms of fear that we may not be paying attention to. Panic. Yeah, that gets our attention. We don't like that because in panic, my story about being in panic when I was snorkeling off Kauai. Did I tell this story? I know I just told it to my client of the last hour. We were vacationing, celebrating my daughter's graduation, snorkeling off the coast of Kauai. We went out, and after a couple of minutes, the thought came to me, I'm going to drown. I always knew I had a fear of deep water. And why that thought came, I panicked. All I could do was to tell myself, keep control of this. Just keep treading water and making your way slowly back to the boat. So I got there. When I got on deck, I just fell into almost nausea and total exhaustion because I had learned to be so self-reliant, never to ask for help, that it didn't even occur to me in my panic that my daughter was close by. There were snorkelers close by. All I could have said is, help, come to me, I need help. And then with their presence and hanging on to them, I would have been much better. But panic is this way. It freezes your brain. It creates mental paralysis. That just reminded about how when I was taking my qualifying PhD exam, I never knew this before in that way. My brain froze. I couldn't think, and I barely remembered enough to pass the exam. This is how fear shows up. The subtle sounds, ways of fearing, doubt. We doubt all the time, don't we? My daughter doubted about what the best decision was. You doubt whether you should choose this dress, choose this book, or whatever. You doubt. You don't trust yourself. So that's another issue. But this is fear showing up. And worry. Worry seems so ordinary. But worry is about being very uncertain about the future or what you're looking at, what you can do, feeling helpless. No, you worry instead. Feeling powerless. No, you worry instead. Think about the past, or the past looms large with the things that went wrong. Procrastination is a way of not moving forward because of what you fear. You fear you don't have enough to do it. You fear that you can't handle it. You fear you're going to make mistakes. All of these things, they are expression. Procrastination is an example of fear, as well as fretting, like worry, and anxiety, which I believe is a cover. It's how the body goes into motion. You feel agitated, nervous, uncomfortable, and you want to avoid feeling that way. And you get caught up in trying to avoid anxiety, which is in some ways your psyche telling you, oh, you don't want to open up to what's there, because what often is there are strong feelings of anger, of actual fear, or actual grief, or actual despair, fear, hopelessness, etc. PTSD, when you've had enough trauma, really dramatic trauma, like the Vietnam veterans, anyone who's been in war, anyone who's been in an accident, anything traumatic, the body's response to fight flight becomes very strong. More exposure, the stronger the system gets. So that PTSD is an automatically default system that gets enacted. And you're in this state where all the organs are basically shut down. It's just your muscles and your heart, maybe, just ready to fight, flee. And this is a complex form of fear and the consequence to the body. So I'm now moving to sadness. As I indicated, I hope, sadness can be easy, especially when you've lost something that you know is important to you. You've lost a friend, a family member, someone you really cared about, to illness or death, or they had to move. This loss breaks your heart, and your response that are tears in your eyes. You grieve. And in this process, you will probably feel the connection to every loss you ever had. So sometimes, like when I saw my parents leave, it connected to so much loss I wasn't aware of. My loss of a sense of safety that I never had, given how I was met by my mother and parents who weren't there. A loss of the care and love I expected. And going back through that, the loss of knowing or experiencing myself as spirit coming to human life, as spirit, and spirit coming from love. So I was love. I lost that connection, and that brings up a lot of grief. I worked with someone yesterday who had for several days an experience of just crying and crying. There were immediate losses to which they could connect. It could be connected, but he and we have done enough work that he was able to say, no, there's something more than that, more than the loss of what I couldn't get from my parents. And we were able to touch upon the very deep sense of loss he has when he lost his connection with spirit, with being with love. So that was a very important part of this. So what more do I have to say about sadness? All the things that you could have lost that will touch upon grief. This loss can happen through natural means, sickness, death, a move, or it can be loss because of emotional disconnection for whatever reason. The friend is no longer talking to you, or your partner shuts down. I'm remembering a client, someone I spoke to this week, who said that her husband had a way of getting so angry, he just cut himself off. There are two women who talked about this. They cut themselves off in such a way that they feel totally alone. the inner child abandoned again. And when pets are gone, either lost or through age have passed on, that connection to that kind of animal spirit love, unconditional love, is very, very painful. They hold the unconditional love of spirit, and we get caught up in the forms that it has in our lives. But nonetheless, the experience is the same: deep, deep loss of something treasured that made you feel safe, that made you feel valued, that made you feel, I'm okay. It can happen in terms of a home. I have a client who, Army brats, Air Force brats, experience time and again a short time in a home and they are on the move again. And this loss, you're supposed to adjust to it, and they do. They learn to bury all the grief. And how the once home loss made them feel safe. Home is being safe, protected. Or you might have lost a job or career, or lost a lot of money. Or you tried for a dream or a goal and you didn't make it. You feel the loss. Or the loss of your health due to illness, injury, or whatever. And for those of us who are early on in our years, our youth, these days, especially when I present or am ready to be on camera, so to speak, I notice, oh my goodness, my face is certainly showing age. I'm losing my youth for sure. So the youthfulness of my heart, I don't see in my face so much. The loss of fertility, which so many men and women go through in the 30s, especially in their early 40s. And they cope with it. They learn how to handle it for the most part. But this has a theme of loss connected to grief. Feelings are sit there buried, and that's why we need to pay attention. To become emotionally intelligent, to have stability and balance, it's important to embrace your feelings of anger, fear, and grief. So the C part of the formula is choose to feel. Choose to hear your heart's message. Listen. Listen to your heart in whatever way you can. Listen especially because the triggers of fear, anger, and grief are calls from your inner child. This is the way they let you know they're still there. And from my view, you need to heal your inner child who are calling because they've taken on the pain and all the overwhelming feelings that occurred when you were rejected, abandoned, betrayed. Thich Nhat Hanh, who is the only spiritual teacher that I know of who's addressed the inner child in his book, which I haven't read, by the way, but I pick up his wisdom from various quotations. Quote, go back and take care of yourself. Your body needs you. Your perceptions need you. Your feelings need you. The wounded child in you needs you. Your suffering needs you to acknowledge it. It's kind of like they're like you. You need something. Well, your body your suffering, your feelings, your wounded child. They need you. They need you to come back to listen. What the inner child needs to hear, it wasn't their fault. She or he is not to blame. In fact, you are innocent, good, and pure. You are deserving of the care and love you need. The inner child process in my book, and I have recordings to guide you through it, so let me know if you would like that. Gives you an opportunity to connect with the inner child in your imagination. So when you connect, you eventually can let her know or him know it wasn't your fault. You are not to blame, because they believe that it was their fault, they're to blame, and they're everything. They're guilty, they're bad, they're a mistake. They need to know that they're innocent, good, and pure, and deserving of the care and love they need. You, the adult, need to come to a place that you can be present and compassionate. So you can exercise this with your inner child. But how do you know compassion? You can start right now by hearing all the negative emotion and distress and suffering that you can detect, and move toward them to be with that, to learn the messages, to learn about all your unmet needs, the needs that were unmet and ignored when you were young. Do I have time? No, we don't have much time. Yesterday, I think I had an exercise when you went into the space of imagination to be with this. But write that down. Make a commitment to yourself, which is the next slide, I believe, to spend even a minute or two in imagination. And imagine a carefree, playful child, curious, exploring. See her picking the flowers, picking up the shells and stones from beach, being astounded by the trees, intrigued by the flowers, or the animals, the dogs, the cats. Just imagine being a young child, innocent, free, in full joy and delight. So that's your imagination exercise that you may have already participated in. Overall, remember the words of Gandhi. Our greatest ability as human beings is not to change the world, but to change ourselves. In fact, it's the only thing that we have the capacity to do. Here I have quick testimonials of clients who wanted to express how they felt in working with me. As you can see, we deal with layers of resistance to gain layers of stability. So you could go along the old way, which most of us are in, but gradually moving toward a new way. And I'm indicating what that new path is. And if I time, and I will have time, especially on Friday, to talk about the stories of clients who have left the old way, give you some details, and inspire you to see yourself in the new way that they have accomplished. So choose to change, connect, and deal with your emotions in a different way to receive their messages and connect with your inner child. Now, we need to make a commitment, jot down, I commit to spending time with myself. I commit to imagining. Spend time with that. The next assignment that is in addition to what I already am assigning, take one instance of anger, another of fear, another of grief to focus on and accept to learn its message for you. Tomorrow we move on to empower, evolve, and expand. Thich Nhat Hanh. Live your daily life in a way that you never lose yourself. When you are carried away with your worries, fears, cravings, anger, and desire, you run away from yourself and you lose yourself. The practice is always to go back to oneself. And that's the essential message that I want to leave this presentation by. So hang on, those of you who are here. Thank you for being with me, live or on recording, and I hope to see you tomorrow for the next time together.